Hey there, Gaga's fiction fans. In part 4, we're taking Naruto to the next level with an overpowered bloodline. Let's dive in. 3 weeks had passed since the end of the second stage of the Chunin exam, 2 weeks since she left the hospital, and she felt more alive than ever. For the first time in her short life, she was enjoying things without worrying about keeping her father happy. She didn't care if her sister was being trained exclusively by the clan's best warriors. She didn't care if, in the end, her sister obtained the bird seal. She hadn't even thought much about Naruto. Naturally, she was concerned about him. After all, he was her teammate and, she could say, a friend. But romantically, she hadn't thought about Naruto at all. She hadn't even been too concerned about the ninja aspect of her life. She hadn't set foot on a training field in those 2 weeks. All she had done was sleep in her boring house, wake up, and have breakfast alone as she usually did because everyone else was awake and training. She also spent time with Tuya, going for walks in the park or exploring the village. Now she knew places she had never seen before. Tuya was an incredibly warm friend, like a soothing balm for her turbulent life. She was fun, very funny when she insulted people for any reason. She could also be serious when the situation called for it and could be terrifying when angry. But, with all her flaws, she was an amazing and strong woman who had quickly broken through her barriers as if they had never been there in the first place. Hinata had confided in her about her fears, her aspirations, her life, and even some of her secrets. Tuya had become her best and dearest friend. Tuya, too, had shared many things, her fears, and hopes. Being with the red-haired girl filled her with calm and happiness, a happiness she never believed existed. They had argued about many things, including Naruto, who seemed to irk her friend. But she couldn't blame the guy, at least not entirely. Even though Tuya insulted him with words that made her blush like she could fry an egg on her face when she heard his name, she couldn't believe he didn't notice her and was so infatuated with an annoying and unpleasant girl. She couldn't understand how he hadn't asked her out a long time ago. At the same time, she couldn't comprehend how Hinata liked a loudmouth like him. Neither of them knew him truly or had seen him since the end of the second stage. So Hinata couldn't tell her much about his appearance changes, and if he was still the same guy. From the little she had interacted with him during the preliminaries, he seemed to have matured overnight, but otherwise, she couldn't be sure. Tuya wanted to give him a piece of her mind in person, and by the way Hinata reacted when she said that, she was sure there would not only be insults but also physical repercussions. However, those 2 weeks were the most precious memories she had, and with each passing day, she felt that Tuya would become a fundamental part of her life. She would become one of the most important people in her life, if not the most important. So, what do you want to do today? Tuya asked, looking around the crowded street. I'm not going back to your house because your father looks at me like he wants to kill me when he sees me. Hinata shrank in her place, remembering how she had brought her friend to her house a couple of days ago. Her father wasn't very pleasant with anyone other than Hanabi and a few skilled clan boys. It seemed like he had taken a dislike to Tuya when he first met her. Well, it might also be because Tuya insulted him with every other word, hearing how he belittled her and called her weak, suggesting that instead of making friends, she should focus on training. She had to get Tuya out of there as quickly as possible to prevent a competition of insults between them. We could do some training, she murmured shyly. The redhead looked at her immediately and sighed when she saw her head bowed. Don't tell me you're feeling this way because of your idiotic father? Tuya asked with annoyance. I've told you, you shouldn't pay attention to the nonsense that a man who wears his bed sheets says. Hinata laughed softly. Every time she said that, she imagined her father actually wearing bed sheets, and there wasn't much of a difference if she was honest with herself. But I want to be strong, she replied quietly. Tuya had that effect on her. You certainly want to, but not in the way you think, the other girl mentioned, smiling contentedly to see a smile on Hinata's lips. For some reason, seeing her friend's smile put her in a state where she didn't utter a single curse all day. What do you mean? Hinata asked, confused. Tuya whistled for a moment to tease Hinata, achieving it faster than other times but causing the same sense of accomplishment as always. She laughed when she saw the pout on the blue-haired girl's face and shook her head. To work so hard on presenting yourself as a Hyuga princess, you're acting pretty childish. She laughed even more when her friend lightly hit her on the shoulder. All right. What I mean is, you don't want to be a ninja. Hinata stopped walking right there and furrowed her brow. I want to be a ninja. I was born into a ninja clan. Women in my clan are trained from infancy to become powerful kanoikas to elevate the prestige that comes with the Hyuga name. You're lying to yourself again, Tuya responded casually. The fact that you responded that you want to be a kunoichi because that's how your clan has raised you from infancy tells me you're forcing yourself into this for external reasons. What do you know? Hinata asked, raising her voice. Considering she always spoke softly, it was as if she had shouted. You're not a ninja. You're not from a clan. Tuya also looked back at her, furrowing her brow. You know I have ninja skills, or you wouldn't have asked me for training, she murmured. While I don't come from a clan, this is something I wanted. I wanted to be strong, to be able to defend myself. There even came a point when Hinata looked at her attentively. The redhead had talked very little about her past, but from what she had said, she knew it hadn't been an easy life. Say it. Tuya looked at Hinata carefully and sighed. There are moments in this profession when you have to actually enjoy killing. It was almost a whisper, but Hinata had a keen ear. She opened her eyes and mouth, not knowing what to say or think. I've done it, and most of the time, I enjoy it. It gives you a sense of power, of superiority. But that's the ninja life, she quickly interrupted. The strong prey on the weak, not just physically, not just those with more chakra or techniques, but also the mentally and emotionally stronger ones overpower the weaker ones. She looked at her friend with strength and power in her gaze. Think about it, Hinata. Is this really what you want? With that, she turned around and started walking again, leaving her friend alone. She knew she had to think things through clearly and make decisions for herself, not for others, not for her father, her sister, or her clan, just for Hinata Hyuga. 3 weeks had passed, and there was only 1 week left until the finals. Kin was still resting due to the seal change, while Naruto and the other girls continued with their routines. They hadn't been able to meet up since that night in Training Ground 44. Each of them had their responsibilities, and the only ones who had real free time were Sakura and Ino, though they spent it training anyway. Not with Naruto because the redhead had to increase the pace in those 2 weeks for his fights, and he also had to start studying his opponents. Kurenai had told him the secret of the cage bunshine, so starting the final part had been relatively easy. This secret also sped up his training. The only problem was that he hadn't taken into account the mental overload when dispelling the clones and had received a harsh reprimand from Yu Gao, who had taken him to the Anbu headquarters for treatment. He had almost had a brain hemorrhage. Since that day, he had to train with a maximum of 30 clones. And if he was training his third Kekkei Genkai, a maximum of 10. Either way, he had sent clones to spy on his opponents, starting with Kakashi and Sasuke. The copy ninja had been quite clever and had taken his apprentice out of Konoha with the Hokage's permission for training. Fortunately, his hypersensitive senses had helped him track them down easily, and he found them in desolate mountains where they could wreak havoc without worries. He had to admit he was impressed with how Kakashi was training Sasuke. He was increasing his speed and endurance, clearly with the idea that he would face Gaara. He was also training him with the Chidori and a Sharingan. The first was relatively easy, but since Sasuke hadn't bothered to improve his chakra control, he was wasting an incredible amount of it for the technique, and therefore, he didn't have enough control over ninjutsu. With the second comma in each eye, he could now improve his abilities. It not only allowed him to move faster, but he could also see everything in slow motion, copying techniques more quickly and easily. This was what had helped him enhance his speed in such a short time. Once he had what he wanted, the Chidori, he could disappear and send the collected information back to the original. Next was Neji Hyuga. While he had previously trained with Tenten, he was now training alone, which hindered the speed at which he progressed. He also had to find his own ways to improve, especially in the use of his dojutsu. He had borrowed Neji's method of solo training because it seemed impressive and appeared to work well, not only for the use of the Byakugan. He tied several heavy and solid logs to ropes, which were in turn attached to the trees around and began to swing from side to side at a considerable speed. Neji was in the center, literally making him the target. He had to concentrate intensely and use his dojutsu to its full potential to avoid being hit. The downside of this exercise was that it only lasted a few minutes since he had no assistance. However, Naruto didn't have that problem since he could create clones that made the logs swing differently and continuously. On the other hand, he had also seen Neji use a couple of quite interesting jutsus, specifically for the clan. So, he didn't need to learn them, but he focused on them to understand their flaws and how to overcome them. As for Gaara, he decided to be more direct and went to the best source of information, but only when he realized that Gaara could easily deceive him just as he had managed to deceive the Sand Ninja. Therefore, he had no choice but to seek information from Temari. When he asked her for information about Gaara, the blonde flatly refused to speak. She wasn't going to betray her brother, even if the person seeking the information was the guy she liked. It had nothing to do with the fact that this way, The redhead would spend more time with her, and they had even gone on a couple of dates, although Naruto had no idea about that. After some time, he realized that, between conversations, he had extracted the information he wanted. He only realized this when she confessed that her brother was the Jinchuriki of the Ichibi. If he had surprised her before, now he didn't know how to express what he felt. Extracting information from her through simple conversations was impressive. Konoikis tended to do that, but often used their sexual charm, sometimes even needing to use their bodies entirely to obtain information. She was more alert to those sorts of things because she knew Naruto was a ninja. Nevertheless, the redhead still extracted information from her. Once he knew what was going on, he paid even more attention to what she said. Naruto only smiled when he realized she was directing the conversation to a point where she would inevitably talk about her brother's abilities. Anyway, he had managed to gather enough information to have a rough idea of what he was facing, so he didn't mind and enjoyed being with Temari, especially without worrying about obtaining information. He had also gathered information from Kankuro, which was much easier because Temari tended to complain about how conceited her older brother was and how careless he was in some things. From there, he knew the types of abilities of the other members who had passed. The only one he had to be extremely cautious of was Shikamaru, who was exceptionally intelligent, and from what he had heard, was paying even more attention to his training, as long as he had time to lie on a rooftop and watch the clouds, of course. With this, he focused on preparing his most complicated Kekkei Genkai, which was so heavy that he couldn't use it for more than about 10 minutes at most. And even though at first, I could only use it for about 3 times at most before getting a massive headache, which, if not for its incredibly fast healing rate, would have made me faint more times than it was clinically healthy. I had to admit that if it weren't for the Cage Bunshine, I wouldn't have been able to extend the time I could use it that much. The next thing I realized is that I needed at least half an hour to recover and use it again, but if I activated it too quickly, the time I could use it was reduced to between 8 and 8.5 minutes, and it kept decreasing if I used it again after half an hour. Anko had advised me not to use it more than twice a day. It healed incredibly quickly, but in the long run, so many migraines could cause damage that might be irreparable, even for my Uzumaki genes and the help of the Kyuubi. She, better than anyone, knew the repercussions that some jutsus and techniques could cause since she had the same curse seal that Orochimaru had given to Sasuke, only it was more experimental and, therefore, much more harmful, temperamental, and much more detrimental to others. This had also led me to train much more in Fuinjutsu. I was determined to learn about the cursed seal. I wanted to remove the seal from Anko, and if I couldn't, at least improve it and prevent it from causing problems for both the user and those around. Plus, that seal had prevented Anko from advancing in her career, and she had remained stuck at Tokubutsu Jonin. The authorities prevented her from becoming a full-fledged Jonin out of fear that she would desert or for any other reason they could think of, deliberately ignoring that the Uchiha had the same seal. The cursed mark seemed to be much more complicated, not because I didn't understand the seal, but because there was no information about it. It was apparently an Orochimaru creation. Only what had been studied from Anko's seal was known, and as this was an experimental seal, there was only so much they could study without harming the Jonin. I was a beginner, and while I understood how the mark worked, it was impossible for me to get rid of it or change it without the help of some reference book. Either way, it had been a fairly productive week, and it seemed that the next week would be the same. "It seems like you're improving quickly," Yugao said, sheathed her sword, "but you seem distracted today." Naruto sighed as he let his scythe disappear. "I don't know how to explain it." He scratched his head and looked at the ground. "You know how animals have this sixth sense to alert them to natural dangers, like an earthquake or a fire? Things like that?" Yugao nodded, somewhat confused. "Well, it's somewhat like that. I feel like something bad is going to happen today, but I don't know what, so my mind is wandering all the time." The purple-haired woman nodded, smiling. "You shouldn't worry so much. You're strong, and I'm sure you can defend yourself no matter what happens." Then she chuckled softly. "I've seen you a couple of times with Temari. What's going on there?" She asked to change the subject, and although she seemed fine with it, she also felt envious for no apparent reason. Naruto blushed and smiled. "I've been getting information from her about her brothers." Yugao was surprised. Part of the Chunin exam that the Hokage never mentioned is that during this month, you have to study your opponent so that you can pass even if you don't win. Many Genin in recent times didn't do that, they only looked at their own strength and didn't care about anything else. And while it was good to be prepared that way, they also had to have information that could make their job easier. After all, they were ninjas, and their main job was to gather information that people didn't want others to know. "And have you been going on dates with her just for that?" she asked again, amused because Naruto didn't see what he was really doing. She knew that the poor boy had not been properly educated and was unaware of some basic things about the interaction between two people, especially people of different sexes, but she didn't expect it to be so much. The redhead blushed and opened his mouth to answer, but then closed it again. "Have we been going on dates?" he asked, astonished. The girl laughed heartily as she watched the redhead turn the same color as his hair. "I think you've been going on dates with all the girls for the past couple of weeks, but it looks like Temari is making progress quickly." Naruto opened his eyes and mouth again, complaining about being teased like that. It was more than clear that they weren't just outings to relax, the girl mentioned with amusement. "Well, the times we've all gone out together, those were, but when you go out alone with a girl, that's a date." He opened his mouth to respond and remained still, astonished. "I've been on dates with Sakura," he whispered in ecstasy, and she didn't complain. Yugao rolled her eyes. She knew that the pink-haired girl had been ahead in winning the boy's heart for a while, but it seemed that Naruto had put aside those feelings. That's why Sakura was making such an effort to get the oblivious boy's attention. But now it seems that Naruto is just trying not to show his feelings to make the girl happy, she thought. Everyone knew that both Sakura and Ino before had been unpleasantly obsessed with Sasuke. "Well, I have to get back to the Anbu headquarters. I guess we'll see each other in the finals. We're going to start doubling rounds to keep the village safe," she said with a macabre smile. "Try inviting the girls formally. See you." She disappeared in a cloud of dust and leaves while laughing at Naruto's expression. He complained for a moment, his face as red as a bonfire, and began to walk, thinking about what he had learned, the feeling that trouble was brewing being ignored for the moment. He coughed a couple of times as he adjusted his village vest to keep warm. It wasn't his night shift today, but he had made a bet with his friend and had lost. So, there was no choice but to work a double shift without pay. To make matters worse, it was supposed to be his girlfriend's last peaceful day, and he couldn't spend it with her because he was out in the cold, keeping an eye out for anything that might harm the village. Moreover, 5 ninja villages were present, and they had permission to be within the village, but that didn't negate the danger they posed. For a couple of months, they had been on high alert. At least nothing had happened, and it seemed that things would end well for everyone, with a fusion undead thanks to the exam, but that was quite normal in a ninja village. He was about to start coughing again when he noticed a shadow moving quickly across the rooftops. With a lot of willpower, he managed to hide his poor state of health and began following the shadow. He stopped after a couple of minutes, hiding his presence as best as he could, and paid attention to what was happening ahead. He recognized Kabuto Yakashi and Dosu Kinuta, both participants in the exams, but he was quite puzzled as to why they were meeting. "Do you want something?" Kabuto asked, bored, but despite everything, he seemed to know this was going to happen. "I know what they're doing," the masked one replied as he tensed his muscles. "They gave us this strange seal, saying it would give us strength, but I don't see any benefit, especially because we almost died against those disgusting Genin they ordered us to kill. They even gave one of them a cursed mark," he growled in annoyance. "I did some research, and I know this seal is going to kill us." Kabuto continued to watch him with boredom. "Congratulations on figuring that out." Dosu growled again. "What do they hope to achieve with this seal?" he asked as he revealed his metallic arm. "We were supposed to be strong when the invasion begins, not that they would kill us like pigs." "Do you really think Orochimaru-sama would take the time with people like you?" Kabuto asked, amused, especially with someone who doesn't notice when they're being followed and talks too much. The white-haired one threw a kunai in Hayate's direction, making him jump away and reveal himself. "So, after all, you're working for Orochimaru," the Jonin murmured, coughing. He unsheathed his sword and prepared for the fight. "I'll have to catch you to get information out of you." "Who says you'll leave here alive to even say anything about this meeting?" Kabuto said, also taking a fighting stance. On the other hand, Dosu cursed his bad luck. He had only supposed he might have a chance against Kabuto, but now he was also facing a Konoha Jonin. With a powerful surge, Hayate reached Kabuto's position within seconds and swung his sword diagonally, hoping to get a clean cut across the chest. However, Kabuto was fast and not only evaded it but also threw a kunai at one of Hayate's legs. He had to use his sword with one hand to defend himself while using his free arm to block Kabuto's attack. "Kakashi was right, you're very dangerous," Hayate said. "It's a bad idea to avoid my attacks like that," Kabuto murmured with a smile. "Now this will happen." To Hayate's amazement, he felt his arm go numb, and it quickly went limp. He crouched, avoiding another attack, and jumped away. He began to check his arm quickly. Due to the adrenaline coursing through his body, he didn't feel any pain. He wasn't sure, but he thought Kabuto might have severed nerves or ligaments. Regardless, Kabuto had shown impressive skill to accomplish what he did with such a simple attack, without Hayate noticing. Now, he could clearly see that he was at a disadvantage. "We need to be very careful with you," Hayate murmured, coughing as he watched Kabuto's hands begin to glow. "They are chakra scalpels," Kabuto commented, amused. Almost immediately, he crouched to avoid Dosu's attack. Hayate was surprised to feel blood coming from his ears, and he became deaf. "Don't forget about me," the masked one growled. He raised his arm to stop Hayate's sword and kicked him in the chest. "I'm going to kill both of you." But to his amazement, he saw the blood coming from Kabuto's ears stop, and the medical ninja appeared to be back to normal. "I wouldn't be so sure," the bespectacled one taunted. "You forgot about the ability of your arm, but it won't happen again." Hayate remained still, analyzing what to do. Without an arm, he was off balance, which was crucial for a swordsman like him. To make matters worse, Kabuto was too skilled to face at a disadvantage. His best option was to somehow escape and seek help. Kabuto growled when Dosu again managed to evade his chakra scalpel with his metallic arm, but he smiled when he kicked Dosu and the Jinan wasn't fast enough to dodge. The kick knocked the air out of Dosu and sent him flying a couple of meters. When Dosu stopped, he spat out blood. The kick had been incredibly powerful, and his speed couldn't compare to the white-haired one. He had thought it would be easy to defeat him because, at the beginning of the exams, he had easily ridiculed him. Now he realized that Dosu was just a very good actor. He jumped away when Kabuto attacked with a couple of kunai and ran towards the Konoha Jonin. If they were going to have a chance to win, they would have to work together for now. Hayate watched him approach and prepared to attack, but he soon realized that Dosu wasn't looking for a fight with him. He glanced at Kabuto, who was approaching much faster, and readied his sword. Kabuto could barely see him and evaded the first attempt at an attack, but another came from below, and he avoided it as well. He had a split-second window between each attack due to his lack of an arm, which gave him a chance to counter. He was about to make his move when Dosu appeared. He cursed himself mentally for not remembering this annoyance, and he paid special attention to his sound arm to avoid bursting his eardrums. He healed incredibly quickly, but it was still annoying, and it left him unbalanced long enough for the Jonin to kill him. He pushed Dosu's incoming arm away, which ended up hitting Hayate, and jumped as strongly as he could while the two of them were entangled. He quickly formed hand seals and inhaled as much air as he could. He was never very good with ninjutsu, but he managed. This attack was one of his favorites. Katen, Funsai Ki, Fire Release, Disintegrator, he exhaled, and the air he exhaled immediately heated and burst into flames, forming a massive fire serpent. Hayate and Dosu watched in astonishment as an enormous yellow fire serpent was created. The swordsman knew that, especially with Katen techniques, the color of the attack could vary depending on what you had eaten. But this was supposed to apply only to D-rank techniques, the weakest ones. The fact that this technique was yellow gave him a bad feeling. Both ninjas jumped as quickly as possible to the sides to avoid being incinerated by the serpent. What was even more astonishing about the technique became clear to Hayate when his completely useless arm brushed against the serpent. Almost immediately, he saw his fingers turn to ashes, and soon his entire hand followed suit. He knew it wouldn't stop until it burned him completely, so he acted quickly and cut off his arm at the bicep. To his surprise, he watched as his arm was completely burned before it even touched the ground. However, he didn't stay there, he had to jump far away when his senses alerted him to the danger. The technique was following him as if it were a real snake hunting him. He jumped again, making sure not to get anywhere near the fire to prevent the rest of his body from ending up like his arm. The only good thing was that he no longer had the dead weight of his useless arm. The bad part was that, as a ninja and a swordsman, he needed both arms. Dosu noticed how Hayate's arm disappeared, so he made sure he wasn't too close. The problem was that he was already tired, and his speed didn't compare to that of a Jonin. He didn't even realize when the serpent turned at a vertiginous speed and attacked him before he touched the ground. The serpent closed its mouth at shoulder height, severing his arm with ease. He didn't even have time to scream before he was dead. The rest of his body began to turn into ashes just as quickly, and after a minute had passed, there was no longer any trace of the Auto Ninja. Hayate realized that Kabuto was still exhaling fire to maintain the technique, which meant he couldn't stop doing it, or the serpent would disappear. Moreover, for such a devastating technique, it meant that it was consuming large amounts of chakra. Seeing an opportunity while the serpent devoured Dosu, he moved forward to kill Kabuto. The white-haired one had already taken into account Hayate's reaction, so as soon as he moved, he ended the technique and jumped far away, throwing 2 kunai with explosive tags attached to them. As soon as they hit the roof of the building, they exploded. Fortunately, Hayate had noticed the incoming kunai and had moved away, although he still received some cuts from the debris. He raised his sword quickly and caught Kabuto's kunai in his hand. "You're very good, Jonin-san, to think you'd notice the explosive tags. It's a classic move when you move away like that," he replied while coughing slightly. "You're not bad yourself, but that last jutsu must have taken a lot of your chakra." "Oh, don't worry, I recover quickly, remember?" he said with a smirk. "To perform a technique like that, it requires a lot of chakra, so I made sure to maintain a reserve." He felt, more than saw, how Kabuto's free hand filled with chakra and quickly moved to avoid getting cut by the chakra scalpel again. "That was close," he whispered, exhausted. Kabuto took advantage of that moment to take out a piece of paper with a seal on it. "This is a containment seal specifically made for chakra. Orochimaru-sama gave it to me." He placed it on his forearm and activated it. "It contains 1/4 of my full chakra. Unfortunately, I can't use more than 1 per day, but it's enough to kill you." He launched himself against Hayate once again, who barely managed to avoid the first attack but not the kick that sent him flying and knocked all the air out of him. Hayate planted his sword in the roof and pushed off to the side to avoid the shurikens Kabuto threw, and then quickly lifted his leg to bear the kick that would have broken a couple of ribs. "Damn, now he's faster," Hayate muttered, coughing. He was faster, but he was getting tired, and losing an arm so quickly had cost him a lot in the fight. It had forced him to exert twice as much effort with each attack, and the dance of petals, the technique he had used before Kabuto released the serpent, also consumed chakra. "What's wrong, Jonin-san, are you tired already?" Kabuto taunted. "Being sick shouldn't be of much help, right?" Hayate coughed again, as if confirming what the traitor was saying. But the real problem was that he had underestimated Kabuto. He had launched his attack without thinking, believing that he was just a simple Genin who was quite bad, considering that he had repeated the Chunin exam several times. Plus, he should have listened to what Kakashi had said, but Yugao had told him what she had done with her students, and he had decided not to pay much attention to an idiot like Kakashi. Hayate should have acted more like the ninja he was supposed to be, instead of thinking about personal matters. Now he was paying the price, and at this rate, he would pay with his life. "Just answer me this, what does Orochimaru want to do?" he asked as he got back on his feet. "It doesn't matter, you won't be around to witness it," Kabuto replied as he lunged once again towards the swordsman. In his right hand, he held his specialized kunai, and in his left hand, he had the chakra scalpel activated. Hayate used his sword to block the kunai and had to contort his body awkwardly to avoid the scalpel. The problem was that his ribs were still sore from the previous kick, which loosened his grip on his sword. Kabuto took advantage of the situation, kicking the weakened spot where Hayate's ribs were, causing them to break. Hayate was sent flying again, but this time, his grip on his sword slipped. He had to pump chakra into his hand to cling to the roof and avoid falling. When he stopped, he quickly began to form hand seals. Doten, Chikyu Doragon, a rather large earth dragon appeared in front of him and shot towards Kabuto with the intention of devouring him. Kabuto leapt away, impressed by how the Jonin could still put up a fight after everything that had happened. He threw some kunai with explosive tags attached to the dragon's head, which exploded and put an end to the technique. He was distracted long enough for Hayate to attack him from behind, landing a powerful blow just below the ribs. He continued pressing by raising his leg and hitting Kabuto's face, sending him flying. Hayate ran quickly and made a few flips in the air before dropping his heel into the traitor's chest, burying him into the roof. He backed away to catch his breath because using his jutsu had drained a bit too much of his chakra due to having to perform them with just one hand. Still, at least he had managed to deal some significant damage. He started forming hand seals again, ready for the chakra drain. Doten, Ishi no Haka, he placed his hand on the roof, which started breaking apart, heading directly towards Kabuto, who was starting to get back up. Seeing the incoming attack, Kabuto tried to get up faster but noticed that his right hand was stuck between two wooden beams. He couldn't do anything as the earth swallowed him. Hayate watched as Kabuto was buried and the roof closed, forming a stone dome. He began to relax, but then the dome exploded, and Kabuto emerged, badly injured, with his left arm broken into two distinct parts but still very much alive and ready to fight. He casually repositioned his arm without showing any signs of pain. "I must say I'm impressed," Kabuto said as he fixed his broken arm. "Performing not one but two jutsu with just one hand is astonishing, but I didn't like being buried alive." The idea was for you to stay buried and die, Hayate replied. Of course, but I don't follow this village's rules very much, Kabuto said with a sadistic smile. He shrugged, making his shoulders crack. He was healing rapidly, but he was running low on chakra again, so he had to hurry. I prefer to bury you all alive and leave you dead. He created a clone and sent it charging towards Hayate at the same high speed, as if he wasn't tired, wasn't running low on chakra, and hadn't been seriously injured just a few seconds ago. They met in the middle, engaging in high-speed taijutsu combat. But soon the clone vanished, leaving Hayate standing in the middle of the roof as he quickly scanned for Kabuto's whereabouts. Where did he go? He asked, confused. It hadn't taken long to finish off the clone. Here, Kabuto said behind him and managed to cut him with his scalpel. Hayate screamed in pain as he held his side opposite to his broken ribs, where there was now an incredibly large and deep wound. He stumbled back slightly and threw a kunai that Kabuto easily caught because it had been thrown weakly. Damn, he said, coughing up blood now. I think I grazed a lung, Kabuto said. You should see a doctor. He felt the blood building up in his throat and had a hard time breathing. His vision went black every few seconds, and he felt himself growing weaker. The last thing he saw was Kabuto laughing before darkness took him. The white-haired man approached the Jonin's body and checked to make sure he was dead. As he had said, he had grazed a lung, which had ultimately killed the ninja, but you could say he was already dead from all the wounds he had inflicted. Anyway, he couldn't let his guard down. He was supposed to be on the outskirts of the village by now, but the idiot Dosu had found him and engaged in that fight. He shrugged and started to walk away, leaving the body there. He had to admit that the Konoha ninja had given him an excellent fight. He hadn't exerted himself so much in a long time, and he hadn't used so much chakra to heal in a while. If there were more ninjas like that in Konoha, it was a good thing they had deceived Suna into fighting them. Naruto woke up in the morning feeling strangely tired and irritable. Things seemed to be getting worse when he kicked the small, rickety bedside table as he got out of bed. Not only did he end up with a sharp pain in his foot, but he also lost his bedside table. Then, looking for clothes, he realized that he hadn't washed anything because he had been too engrossed in training, so he had nothing to wear. The only clean outfit he had was one of his hideous orange jumpsuits. With a groan, he took the clothes and put them on, feeling uncomfortable and exposed. He knew he could still blend in with anyone, even with such a bright color, but he still felt like a giant flame in the middle of the night, and the outfit was getting too small. He gathered all the dirty clothes and put them in garbage bags to take them to the laundry. He left the bags at the front door and went in search of food. To his dismay and annoyance, there was absolutely nothing to eat except for a carton of milk, and since he didn't know how long it had been there, he didn't want to risk drinking expired milk again. Starving and getting more irritated by the minute, he took his frog-shaped wallet, which was fortunately filled to the brim, took the bags of clothes, and left the apartment. His first stop was the building's laundry room. It was a small room with a washing machine and a dryer, as run down as the rest of the building but at least still functional. He got even more annoyed when he noticed that some of the tenants hadn't picked up their laundry, and it had been sitting there for a few days, smelling of dampness. He had to take out all that rotting laundry and put it in one of the bags he had brought, leaving room for his own clothes. Then, as he was about to leave the room, the doorknob broke, causing the door to move on its own, and, thanks to the cursed laws of that damned world, the door hit him on the head. He had to take 3 deep breaths to avoid kicking the door off the wall, but he left the room, slamming the door as hard as he could without destroying the building. He walked along the main street, looking for a good place to eat, with a furrowed brow and his stomach complaining. The villagers around him moved away in terror, not wanting to be in the path of the demon when he got destructive. He arrived at a restaurant and walked in without caring about anything. The waiter, upon realizing who he was about to kick him out quickly when he noticed his irritated expression. He swallowed hard and made a small bow. Breakfast, Naruto said. His ability to reason was being guided by 2 things, food and combat. If he didn't get the first one, he could start wrecking whatever was in front of him. The waiter swallowed hard at the tone in which Naruto spoke and nodded, leading him to one of the empty tables in the place. He left him with a menu and hurried to the kitchen to tell the chefs what had happened. It was well known that some of the restaurants let the demon kid in to charge him much more than others and to feed him leftovers or cook with damaged ingredients. At this moment, it wouldn't be very advisable if they still wanted to have a restaurant to work in. On the other hand, the redhead focused on the menu images until he decided what he wanted to eat. He waited for a minute until the waiter returned and pointed to 3 different images. In the first image, there were pancakes, coffee, and scrambled eggs. In the second, there was a meat dish with potatoes and a salad. In the third, there were a couple of sandwiches with orange juice. The waiter looked at the images for a moment before turning back to Naruto. He shrugged, wrote down the order in a small notepad, and headed back to the kitchen. He didn't know if the kid could eat all that, but as long as they paid and he didn't wreck the restaurant, he was fine with it. About 15 minutes later, he returned with the first dishes: pancakes with maple syrup, black coffee with a little milk, and scrambled eggs. The redhead attacked the food as soon as the plates touched the table. The waiter had to move quickly so Naruto wouldn't grab his hand and eat it too. He returned with the rest of the order and left quickly to avoid having to endure the demon any longer. Naruto was just starting on the first sandwich when an Anbu arrived. "Hokage-sama wants to see you, Uzumaki-san," he murmured before disappearing as quickly as he had arrived. His irritation only seemed to increase due to the interruption, and even more so that he had to leave without finishing his meal. He shrugged, took a roll from one of his kunai pouches, and put the food in it. Then he left the money on the table and left the restaurant without further ado. He had managed to trick his stomach with the little food he had been provided, so his reasoning and thought processing were starting to work again. Naruto had to wonder, what did the old man want? It had to be important if he sent an Anbu to fetch him. He quickened his pace, heading to the Hokage Tower, shooting fierce looks at every villager who looked at him with disdain or talked behind his back. He entered the tower without concerning himself with the two ninjas at the entrance, even though he could feel their hateful eyes fixed on his back. He reached the Hokage's door and opened it without knocking, but he gave a slight nod of his head to his secretary, who had always treated him well. He remembered that she used to give him something when he came, whether it was a simple piece of candy or even a bowl of instant ramen. He liked her a lot, even though he had never asked her name. He made a mental note to do that when he left. As soon as he entered the room, he could feel the tension that filled the small space. He glanced at everyone who was present, recognizing Asuma and Guy, as well as Yugao, although she was working, so it was better to call her by her title, Cat. The others were Jonin members and a few Anbu he didn't know in person. "Finally, you're here, Naruto-kun," Sarutobi said, giving him a tense smile. "Now we can begin. Last night, a tragic event occurred. One of our Jonin died. He was on guard duty at the time, and we don't know exactly what happened. But from what we found, Hayate Gecko and Dosu Kinuta were killed by Kabuto Yakashi, Orochimaru's assistant and apprentice. His body was found shortly after by some of his colleagues, but they couldn't arrive in time. 2 Jonin pursued Kabuto, but his trail disappeared even before he left the village." Sarutobi sighed wearily. "As you know, Hayate wasn't a member of a clan, and his family died a long time ago. We know he had a girlfriend, but she wasn't a clan member either. So, I've gathered you all here to ask, what do you want to do? We could cremate him, or we could bury him in the national cemetery, which is quite expensive." Naruto took a step forward, drawing everyone's attention. He didn't know Hayate well, and he had been annoyed by the constant coughing, but he knew he was Yugao's boyfriend, and for her sake, he would do whatever it took. After all, she was one of his dearest people. There is no Uzumaki clan in Konoha yet, but it's just a week away from happening. I want you to preserve the body until I become a Chunin, and once I do, I want him buried in the family mausoleum. He felt Yugao's gaze on him and knew she was immensely grateful. He gave her a quick, affectionate smile. Sarutobi was also smiling, content. "Very well, Naruto-kun. We appreciate what you're doing," he said, and 2 Anbu disappeared. With that said, everyone started leaving. They had all been friends with Hayate, except for Naruto, but they had all lost loved ones in the past, so each had their own way of dealing with the pain. Naruto followed Yugao, and as they began to jump from rooftop to rooftop, they did so in complete silence. But when they arrived, they noticed something strange. The barrier Naruto had set up to keep others from finding the place was pulsating. They tensed, ready to fight if necessary, but they only saw an old man nodding and looking at the seals Naruto had created. "These are magnificent seals," he murmured, studying them attentively. "There's even room for improvement. Whoever made them is definitely an expert." Naruto fake coughed, startling the old man, who stumbled and fell on his back. "Who are you, and what are you doing here?" Naruto asked, entering full ninja mode. The old man raised his hands, smiling. "I stumbled upon this barrier made of seals, and I had to study it." He smiled even more, giving a perverted grin while looking at Yugao. Both of them stood there, not sure how to react. Naruto didn't know who this guy was, but he knew it had something to do with Orochimaru, so he had to be pretty strong. Yugao, on the other hand, was well aware of this man's reputation. "All right," Naruto said, thinking of what to say. "This is my training area, so I'll ask you to leave. Oh, but you have no idea how incredible these seals can be. I'm a seal master, and I've never thought of these kinds of seals. I want to study them, the old man said, studying them closely. Besides, I'm the legendary Sanin Toad, a seal master, and the super pervert Jiraiya. He finished with an eccentric pose and a perverted grin, looking at Yu Gao. They both stood there, not knowing how to react. Naruto didn't know who this guy was, but he knew it had something to do with Orochimaru, so he had to be pretty strong. Yu Gao, on the other hand, was well aware of this man's reputation. All right, Naruto said, trying to think of what to say. This is my training area, so I'm going to ask you to leave. Oh, but you have no idea how incredible these seals can be. I'm a seal master, and I've never thought of these kinds of seals. I want to study them, the old man said, closely examining the seals. Besides, I'm the legendary Sanin Toad, a seal master, and the super pervert Jiraiya. He finished with an eccentric pose and a perverted grin, looking at Yu Gao. Naruto was unimpressed, and he just wanted the guy to leave. Fine, I agree, Jiraiya sighed. I came across this barrier made of seals, and I had to study it. He smiled a bit more. On the other hand, I'm your godfather. The truth is I should have come earlier to train you for the Chunin exams, but I got caught up in my research. He started to get a nosebleed to Yu Gao's dismay. I can see you've been doing well. But I, the most incredible and powerful man on this earth, will take you to the top, and you'll become the most powerful Hokage of all time. I don't want to be Hokage, Naruto interrupted. You'll be even greater, Jiraiya started to say. Wait, you don't want to be Hokage? But sensei. Naruto shrugged. I stopped wanting to be Hokage when my body changed, he said, revealing the seal on his stomach, which looked very different from what Jiraiya remembered. I'm not interested in the past. If you're my godfather, I should hate you for leaving me to live the way I did, but I'm interested in seals, especially this stupid seal my father created. He lifted his shirt to show Jiraiya the seal, which was very different from how Jiraiya remembered it. I've been self-training, but I've realized that I can't keep learning seals without a master, and it seems you're the only seal master around. I can forgive, but I can't forget. I don't give respect for free, you have to earn it. For now, trying to enter my training area is not earning it, he said, looking into the old man's eyes. A start would be for you to leave and let me process this. Besides, my friend here needs my help. The second step to earn my respect is never to come here, not even close. Understood? Jiraiya was impressed with what Naruto was saying. He understood, he had left the kid in Konoha all alone, and from what he knew, he had been abused in every way possible. It wasn't that he hadn't wanted to do something, but his job as a spy wasn't a safe place for a child either. He hoped Naruto would forgive him, and according to what Sarutobi-sensei had told him, the kid never held grudges, but now it seemed that he forgave but didn't forget, and he wasn't the same idiotic and trusting boy he had heard about. The ninja world was tough, and he hoped to change Naruto's way of thinking while they trained. It seemed that now it wasn't necessary, but it would be much harder to make him recognize Jiraiya as more than just a teacher. All right, I agree, Jiraiya said, sighing. He still wanted to study those seals because they were very different from what he had ever seen, but he also wanted to be on good terms with his godson. See you tomorrow at the Hokage's summit at 10 in the morning. With that, he disappeared, leaving the two of them alone. Yu Gao sighed and removed her mask as they left the barrier and returned to the outside world. Naruto was concerned. Yu Gao looked normal on the outside, but he could feel her emotions coming in waves. Cry, he said softly, catching the attention of the purple-haired Kunoichi. What? He approached and lifted her chin slightly, his two pairs of violet and brown eyes meeting. Her brown eyes soon welled up with tears. Cry, Yu Gao. Don't hold it in, it's not good for you, I can assure you, better than anyone else. Yu Gao sighed before letting her tears fall. She hugged Naruto, trying to endure the pressure of her loss, sadness, and depression. We were going to get married, she whispered into Naruto's shoulder. Naruto didn't say anything, he just left his left hand on her back and used his right hand to stroke her head. He had never been good at comforting girls, but he had seen parents do it when their children cried like this, so he supposed it was the right way to do it. He felt his anger rising inside him. He wanted to get his hands on Kabuto and tear him apart piece by piece. But for now, he kept those feelings buried. They would be needed later. It was said that the best ninjas had no feelings to withstand their dangerous and challenging lives, but for him, it was different. He felt his emotions were his best weapon. Not just hatred and anger, of course, but also happiness and protection. Each one had to be used at the right moment. In a fight, he might need that hatred and anger he was now feeling for the one who had harmed the girl in his arms. But there would be other fights where he would need the happiness and protection he felt for all his friends. He let the girl cry out all her emotions, he'd figure out how to make her happy later. But for now, he had to let her release all the sadness she had been holding in from losing not only her fiancé but also a very good friend and a companion she had known for a long time. As for Orochimaru, he would pay. First, he had to find the new vessel for the seal to change it back. He wanted the snake's plans to be ruined, and if he could cause significant harm to that snake in the process, even better. And then it would be Kabuto's turn, and how he would enjoy it. He would make him beg for death, and he would only give it to him when he no longer recognized himself.